So we got an intro song.
We need a beat.
Welcome to the MPCs podcast. We have Armand again with us today. We have Joshua Chow, partner in crime. We have me, John Dogra, and we're discussing probably the biggest gaming news that'll exist this year. I don't think anything bar the launch of a new game will be as big as this. So what are we talking about? We're talking about Sony and the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission of America, versus Microsoft Xbox on the sale or acquisition of a $60 billion company known only to everybody as Activision Blizzard, or the people who like to create Diablo Mobile. So, and unless you've been living under a rock, this is probably the biggest acquisition since Disney bought Fox, since Disney bought Marvel, and nobody questioned it, right? Nobody cared. It's not like Warner Brothers was like, whoa, 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 you can't buy Marvel? So, I just want to open up with a little bit of a thought on this and all that kind of stuff. We talk about it. Mergers and acquisitions happen all the time, right? And like, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing, but that's how companies accrue things, right? Like Coke bought Sprite, bought Fanta or something like that down the line or whatever. You know what I mean? Like there are conglomerates that own several other brands, right? Like BMW owns Rolls-Royce. Volkswagen Auto Group owns Porsche, owns Lamborghini, owns Bentley. So why is it that you guys think, I mean, aside from the obvious, why is Sony so crazy? Why have they gone so crazy about this that not only are they going to sue to stop the lawsuit in America, but they're going to go to Europe under the CMA, the what? It's the, I said it before, right? It's the Commission for Mergers and Acquisitions in Europe to block the sale. Anybody want to hazard a guess, talk about it before we hit up on the actual topics?
Yeah, applause yours, Josh.
I guess, but thank you so much, Armand. I think just a quick thought here where, I mean, in terms of the machinations of like corporate America and acquisitions, right? I mean, it's not a new thing. It's not a new thing to when it comes to even tech, because at the end of the day, I mean, it is a volume and numbers game. Mm-hmm. So, and it's the most, the quickest, and it comes with big bucks, but it is the easiest way basically to grow, right? So I think it's gone. This is beyond the 70s or the 80s. There's not much thought into organic growth. Nobody's willing to wait.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the inorganic way is to pay up, make people drop their shorts, and you know. So I mean, this is I guess where we're trying to get at here is that it's very normal right now, but I think it's more further down the line. I think we will also be discussing about this where it comes to what is the effect on people, right? And ultimately, not just the effect on audiences and gamers in general, but also what does it do to the overall quality of what's being outputted, right? Yeah, so I think that's another thing where we need to talk about. I mean, be it the effects to advertisers like us or marketers in general. I mean, that is periphery. I mean, we are all affected, but us as gamers and also what we get and what we expect is gonna change in some manner, right? Sometimes it's for the good, but oftentimes, unfortunately for us, it's very lacking in terms of what we get in the content that we love, in games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Armand, any thoughts?
Yeah.
Quick thoughts on that?
Well, first and foremost, totally agree with what you said, Joshua. Like, the merger acquisition, it's a simple way of growing, right? So most of what's happening right now is when we look even locally is, if I can't beat you, I'll buy you, right?
Yeah.
Right. So it's as simple as that. So if you have enough capital, you have enough cash flow rather than compete. I'll just buy you off. And I think that's the other thing that is rather worrying. So when we look at why these companies exist in the first place, and we talk about gaming, it's to create a service for us end users.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to all these big dollars, it's because I want to make more money. And to your point, who is going to suffer in the long run? Because again, bottom line, for these big conglomerates, I'm still going to hit my bonus of 2% next year.
Mm.
But what about the people who have been working on those games?
Yeah.
What about the people? Yeah, they literally get nothing.
They get
They're
nothing.
like, oh, yeah, we're downsizing, unfortunately. We're combining your department with that, and then this and this. Didn't you get the memo, right?
Thank you, Electronic Arts. But
Yeah, and you know, it's so funny. Off camera, we were talking about EA just before you joined the call. It was crazy because they're famous. They're world famous for killing off studios, right? So
Yeah.
I love how we start though, because you know why? That's exactly what the arguments are that are currently being made in the courtroom between the FTC, the judge, and Sony, and on Microsoft's level. So they've gone in and said, like, judge is obviously not a gamer, obviously. Right? If she was a gamer, she'd be the perfect human being, right? Like,
Unless he's Judge Dredd.
so she's gone in and said, like, why can't you guys just make your own game? So why block the merger at all? Just make your own damn game. And I love how the first thing you said, Josh, and then echoed by you, Armand, was that I don't have creativity. So just buy yours.
yeah,
Your creativity's mine now.
Yeah,
I take it. You know what I mean? It's a little jarring. It's not sad, but I mean, I understand this is the way the world works, and we know that every time someone tries to make something better than the Big Mac is still best. You know what I mean? It's always the joke, right?
But I think, John, from like what you mentioned, right, in terms of the judge who's not a gamer, just asked a very simple question, right? Like,
Oh yeah.
why are you guys arguing about this? Why don't you just make your own game instead of fighting over something that, you know, if you're not capable? So it does go back to that argument and questions, right? It's like, are you not capable of an equivalent to a Call of Duty or something better? So I think it's like, it's then that kind of hits the heart of like, oh, you know, do they question this or not? Yeah.
I guess. I mean, to me, I feel like. So after reading and watching all the lawyers' interpretations, like these were not gamers who did this content. This was lawyers who were commenting on the situation on the IP, the lawsuit, the IP rights, and all that kind of stuff. Is this monopolistic practice? Is it not monopolistic practice? Who suffers? Who wins? Who loses? Right? And one of the things that came out very clearly was the judge was like, PlayStation, will you put Call of Duty on a PlayStation Plus type platform that is the equivalent of a Game Pass from Xbox? The answer was no. Right? They want the full $70 plus all the extra monies you're gonna pay for all the Rambo DLC and the Jean-Claude Van Damme DLC or Terminator DLC that's gonna go into Call of Duty, right? And net, I think just to summate a little bit, because I think we got to get to what's probably going to happen at the end, right? Before we deep dive into all the little nuts and bolts of where we want to get to, is that she's going to probably rule in favor of Microsoft purchasing Blizzard Activision, and for the only reason is that when you look at the grand scheme of things, when you have a service like Xbox Game Pass, which extends itself to PC, you get all the same titles as you would on PC, just maybe a few less. It is pro-consumer because it costs so much less. I don't have to pay $70. If I paid $70 on Xbox Game Pass, I could have 3 months of gaming any game I want on my machine. So net, I think obviously PlayStation doesn't want this to happen. Part of the reason is because Game Pass does exist. And Game Pass, I thought it was a game changer when they launched the Xbox One. It is also the reason why I bought an Xbox One S. And as you all know, if you tuned in last episode, Josh is a PlayStation guy. He bought a PlayStation 5.
Yeah,
Yes,
this
I
was Street
see.
Fighter.
For Street Fighter and Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
And so, if people didn't know, I take full responsibility for converting Armand to the Church of the PC Master Race. Formerly a
God.
PlayStation guy, now a Windows Microsoft user.
Yes,
So
sir.
I like this idea that we have a little bit of a fanboy thing going and all that kind of stuff. I will forever and a day side with Microsoft. I do think I mean, I really liked my Sony days. When I had a PlayStation, when I had PlayStation 2. Of course, in between there was my Dreamcast, and that for me was better than both. But Sony's done a really good job to build up itself, right? And we already know they are the market leader right now when it comes to home consoles. We're not putting the Switch in the same boat. The Switch is a home console, but I think it just, in terms of raw horsepower, it just can't, right? It will do its best. It's got a large following. Everyone in this call right now has a Switch.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I have an OLED.
All the-
Do you guys have V2s?
I've got
Yep,
my
I do.
OG. Yeah.
Yeah, you got the OG V1? Okay, cool. So, I mean, we know the importance of, as a gamer, right? As a pure nerd, we know the importance of having at least one of something that's current.
Yep.
A Switch keeps us current in terms of we get to play the games on Switch. An Xbox or a Sony PlayStation does give us the option. And of course, if all three of us have PCs, then fine. There are alternative options for us on that too. So, but I do want to say that in spite of all this, we shouldn't be taking sides, all right? Because the point is not to argue over each other. Because I know when I broke the news to Josh had this like, how did that person say this about that and all this kind of stuff? And it was like, this just doesn't know anything about PlayStation and gaming. How dare you? I was just like, yeah, but I can see the logic though. You know what I mean? Like when it comes down to it, right? It's the lawyers that present the case, and I think it's not our job to determine who's right or who's wrong because we're not lawyers.
Right.
We're just
Right.
a marketeer, two advertising dudes, talking about the situation. So
Yep.
I think what's probably going to be the first topic is we already know about exclusive rights. It's all
Yep.
contract based, right? I sign a deal with Sony. I keep my game on their platform for 6 months to a year. That's a good head start. So anybody who's determined to play this game must buy either a PC or my PlayStation. And that's no two ways about it. And I just want to ask a question. And I know, to me, I think it's an unfair advantage. But I also understand that, hey, exclusivity deals happen all the time. Stan Smith signed with Adidas. Jordan is part of Nike. Like, you want something, you got to go to that platform and get it. And it's up to the negotiation of the company. And I'm totally okay with it. But in cases where I want to play Street Fighter 5 on my Xbox, well, too bad, so sad. You know what I mean? Like, I want to play Final Fantasy when it drops day one. No, well, you cannot.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, what are you guys' takes on that? Because just to touch a little bit on it, we already know what Japanese corporations are like, right? I don't think there's any mystery. No Japanese video game company or company gets sold to an American or European company unless that company is bullshit, is so trash that the Japanese don't see any redeeming qualities in it.
Right.
Right? Thoughts?
A very quick one. I think Microsoft did try Sega.
Oh,
but
no,
I think
dude,
Sega is too...
did you not see the redacted documents?
Yeah, they did, right?
They had a wish list of 20 companies out of 150 companies they approached for acquisition. And Sega was just like, no, we're Japanese, hello.
Yeah.
If we're going to exclusive with anyone, it's going to be Sony or Nintendo.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think on that, right, it's quite fascinating that that you brought up the example of like Nike and Jordan, right? Because back then, exclusive means exclusive, right?
Oh, yeah.
Whereas for us now in this day and age, in gaming, right, exclusive just means 1 year. To a certain, so it depends on the title, right? So that's fascinating in itself. But it kind of, I mean, in this day and age, honestly, it still adheres to. I mean, let's assume that if a game doesn't release any extra DLC and so on, right? It's just like a standalone, right? That you would buy. I think it still goes back to the old rules of gaming, where you make most of your money, especially if you don't have any DLC or add-on content, right? Where you make most of your revenue within the first month, if not you're
Yeah,
dead, right?
yeah. It's kind of like a YouTube video, right? It drops,
Yeah.
and if it doesn't make bank like 1 million views,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, for sure, right?
yeah.
So, but now in this day and age, where because we have social media and we have the internet, right? So I don't know how the 1 year exclusivity works, because everyone else who's like, for instance, let's say for instance, like Final Fantasy comes out, is already out on PS5, right? And everybody who's waiting for a year for it to come out on a different platform, right? Everybody would have already seen all the watch plays, and
Yeah.
they've basically seen streamers do it, and some of them might even try it out, and it's too late into the game. So I think I'm not sure how this 1 year, 6 months exclusivity is sustainable, because the same thing happened with Monster Hunter as well, where Rise came out for like 2 years on the Nintendo Switch, which was part of the main reason why I bought a Switch, right? Because I love Monster Hunter to death, So, but then it's like just this year it drops on like on PC, on PlayStation 5, and Xbox, and so on and so forth, right? But it's kind of it's too late. So I guess what the rest of the other guys, aside from Nintendo, right? Because Nintendo already has built the base for Rise, right? Whereas everyone else would have already been like me, where we bought a Switch. So then we're questioning, like, okay, I already have a PS5 now. Am I gonna buy Rise again? Probably not, right? So the other gaming platforms and companies are kind of left with like crumbs,
Yeah.
leftovers in terms. So it's kind of like I don't know how that works, but I'm not exactly against exclusivity as well, because there is a benefit in terms of a wall garden, right? As we've seen very well with Nintendo, right?
Oh yeah. That
Yeah.
is the ultimate walled garden.
Yeah, exactly. But they have the right to it, because there's ingenuity, there's innovation, there's compelling storytelling to it, right? Yeah.
I thought it was something interesting you said in there, and I felt like the words that came up to my mind were like, "Oh, you're punished for your patience."
Yeah,
You know what I
could be
mean?
punished
Like,
for your patience, right?
oh, you bought the wrong console. You got no more money. Well, you gotta wait 2 years. Too bad, so sad. You know what I mean?
It's basically, right, you just wait 2 days, and if you're not careful, right, you'll be spoiled. Your whole gaming experience for that title will be spoiled in just a couple of hours, because with retargeting, everything will come to us. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
do get that experience ruined a bit.
Yeah. So
Right.
don't wait a
So
year. Yeah.
right. So yeah, in that context, I mean, I think just to kind of pull what we do on the basis, and then what I do specifically is customer retention, right? Is when we look at exclusivity is to literally keep people within the universe or within the ecosystem, right? So it's not really about, oh, how quick you're gonna play the game. You gotta wait a year, wait 2 years before you can finally play the game. Everything right now is based on FOMO, right? Because again, as you said, oh, I gotta wait 2 years, but I want to play it now. But by the time if I get to play it, I get to see other people play it. So me on certain things, like I just finished Ghost of Tsushima this year. It's been out for 2 years,
Awesome, right? Yeah.
right?
It's
Yeah,
only
but
been out for 2 years. It's been like I thought it was longer than that.
yeah. So I
Okay.
took my time with it. So it was never a pressure for me to like finish it, because again, that's my own experience. But I understand there are consumers who go, I need to play it now. And all these big conglomerates know that for a fact that FOMO is a real thing.
Yeah.
So even with this 1 year to 6 months ago, it's gonna be with us for 6 months. After that, you can play it, but it's gonna be 6 months. All your friends have played
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
but you only now going to experience. So you decide. You can be on the table talking to your friends about it,
Yeah.
or you wait 6 months and then talk about it. But so you buy our console, or you stick to the console that you have, right? So that is what they know, and this is why you can see all these mergers happening. Even if you look at what Netflix was doing, but what Disney was doing, right? They go, no, content all mine, because again, you want content, you come to me,
Yep.
right? So in terms of exclusivity, now it's not even it's predominantly mine. It's I don't mind holding it for 6 months, but you're gonna miss out on 6 months.
You know, you bring up something really interesting, and I feel like this is why, as an entertainment, as part of the entertainment spheres, right? Video games so differ so much from any other type of entertainment, right? Like when you got the movies, the TV, and all that, a lot of studios will change rights for different TV shows, movie rights. You know, other studios will pick it up and all that kind of stuff, or continue the show. But in video games, I feel like we've gone so far down the path, right, where we're still not paying fair value for the hardware inside the console.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, the console manufacturer is still taking a hit off of every Xbox, off of every PS5 sold since the 360, right?
Right.
I think the 360 and the PS3 were the two really heavy absorption of costs for the parent company. And it's coming down to, I have to buy this console to enjoy this game. You have to buy this TV to enjoy this television show at 4K OLED or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't know whether for me I kind of hate being pigeonholed like that, and that's probably why I took the easy way out, right? I just went straight PC. I was like, chances are I'm not going to play another story game, probably ever. It just takes too long, you know what I mean? But like, I think it took the start of COVID before I started playing a story game again, with like Elix or like Diablo 3 and all that. And I just feel like this contract thing it's not necessarily a bad thing. I don't think. You know what I mean? Is it sort of anti-consumer practice? No, I don't think so. But it punishes you for making a bad decision. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, it does. Right?
you know what I mean? Like, if you had like two brothers and like each of you got one console each, you're square. You got everything. If you're an only child like me, you're like, you get one choice and one choice only. Just say Nintendo. Well, it's too bad. No Sega for you.
But see, to your point, John, I think that's fairly interesting what we're seeing now, right? Because when we were all growing up, it was all about the console itself. It's, you have a Super NES, you have a Sega Saturn, GameCube. Now it's what games do you have? So we don't really talk about the console or the platform itself, because again, a platform's a platform, right? If you want to go who's the best, PC is always the best. Come on, right?
For sure. I mean, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, games are designed off of PCs, right?
No. Well, they kind of are now because of the, because of the PlayStation and the Xbox both use the same chip. They come from an AMD
PCs,
APU.
right?
Yeah. It's more akin to a PC than ever before.
Correct. So right now, it's not really about we're here to sell you the console, because as you said, they're taking a hit with the console. So they know that I'm not going to make money out of selling consoles. And if I don't sell it at an adequate price, no one's going to pick it up. Right? Which is why it's the whole Yahoo thing with Sony going out on stage and go $2.99 and then just walks away, right?
I remember that.
Right?
No, it was $1.99.
$1.99, sorry, yeah. Right? So,
Josh, do you remember this? I don't know whether. Okay, so PlayStation and Sega Saturn were launching at the same time in CES. So the Saturn guy gets up and he talks a spiel about the Saturn, blah 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 blah, and he says
This is like 94 or something. Right?
Yeah, and he says 1992 or something, and he says like, the Saturn will retail for $2.99.
Yeah.
The Sony exec gets up there on stage, and he says into the mic, $1.99, and then he just walks.
Yeah, that's it, and that's the whole presentation, right?
Yeah, and the crowd just goes bananas. What happens? The Sega Saturn dies within months.
Exactly.
No one's gonna pay $2.99. Even though if you spec'd out your PlayStation 1 with 2 memory cards and 2 controllers, it is $2.99. Any game, okay, fine, any game.
It's all packaging, right?
It's all packaging. Yeah.
But see, that's what we used to have, right? So now the hardware is not the money maker. So which is why going back to this whole acquisition, they now realize, shit, Oh, sorry. Crap.
That's fine, don't worry. I'm not editing that out. It's too much time.
It's like, yeah, so yeah, a console is a console, right? But if I have a rights to a game, I can dictate where that game goes.
Mhm.
So in terms of Microsoft, I can put it on Xbox, but I can also put it on PC. Both are my platform. Ha 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 ha, right? Whereas
Yeah.
then you see little Nintendo playing by itself, they go, well, I've got Mario and no one has Mario. So
Yeah.
buy Switch,
Yeah.
right?
Buy a Switch.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
You want Zelda? Buy a Switch. You want
yep.
Pokemon?
Yeah.
Still
Buy a
buy
Buy
a
a
Switch.
Switch,
Switch.
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
So they know that they have very strong IPs, but with Xbox and Sony, there's only so much studios that they have.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, they need to go, okay, this studio is multi-platform. No, no, no. I need to get the consumer onto my ecosystem. Once they're into my ecosystem, then I'll introduce them to other things.
Okay. Funny. No, I feel like this is a great gateway to the next point here. So we were
Awesome.
supposed to talk about like what's been going on in the case, blah 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 blah. But that brings up a great point. So Judge asks Microsoft and Xbox, what are you gonna do when you buy Activision Blizzard? Are you gonna keep Call of Duty on multiple platforms, or are you gonna make it exclusive? They
Yes.
said they will honor any contract that is been signed with Sony. So if the exclusivity deal still is valid upon acquiring Activision Blizzard, Xbox and Game Pass will still get will still have to wait 6 months to a year before Call of Duty gets on their thing. And
Yeah.
then they asked the guy who, one of the CEOs of Activision Blizzard, and he's like, "Well, what do you feel about this whole thing?" And he says, "I don't want to be on an exclusive contract with anybody, because this game makes so much money on every single platform we put it, and in court says I'm so apologetic that we didn't put it on the Switch." That we never thought that the Switch could handle it was what he said, right? And the thing is, look, if the Switch can handle Apex, which is okay, fine, handle Apex,
Handle, right?
yeah, it can definitely handle a version of Call of Duty Mobile, right?
Yeah.
A more spruced up version of that, right?
Mhm.
So, and I think that was like, it was. I just feel like they just said all the right things at every step. You know what I mean? Like, that was the right thing to say to a judge who seemingly is very prosumer. You know what I mean? And because when you say an answer like that, what is the rebuttal? What is Sony gonna say? Like, no, I don't want you to say the other things. Make it exclusive, so I'd be angry with you.
Well, I can continue to sue you guys. Like, no, no, don't be friendly with us.
Yeah, so I guess this is coming to the point of it, like pro consumer tactics, like Game Pass and all that, versus pro company practices, right? Which is like, I hate to say it, I'm not pointing a finger, it just happens to be the truth. That right now Sony is trying to stop it from happening because they want to sell more hardware and as a result get that money from the software. Whereas Microsoft is taking the ultimate leap of faith here. They're going, okay, what's the margins on Game Pass? I mean, really, I've heard some really scary stories that people put their stuff on Game Pass and they get pittance in return. The game is free, but the game developer makes nothing because nobody's playing the game. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
so there is a dark side of this prosumer thing, right? Versus being this anti-consumer seemingly practice, or like, let's be fair, okay? It's not anti-consumer, right? Like, we
No,
used to
it's
buy games when we were kids, right?
Mhm.
We didn't have a Netflix of games when we were kids.
Mhm.
We'll buy and exchange games with other friends and all that. Pops it into the cartridge, play it a little bit, and off it goes to the next friend or back to the friend who lent it to you, right? So it's not really bad, but now we're in a space where everybody wants something free.
Yeah.
What do we do now? You know what I mean?
It's free 99.
Yeah, it's like you
Very
join
nice.
you you join the Jedi side only to realize it's corrupt from within, because the developers don't really get that much money unless you're a big name.
Mhm.
What do we do then?
I mean, it's kind of like, I mean, the system has morphed, right? a little bit. So you have free to play now,
Mm-hmm.
like Valorant and so on, and Genshin Impact. I mean, but they're just charging us a different way,
Yeah.
right? It's skins, it's add-ons, it's passes, it's expansions. So, but I'm not. I mean, back to the question of either prosumer or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just my opinion, but I mean, I think we do have to acknowledge here that at the end of the day, right? I think maybe some people lose sight where we live in a capitalistic world anyway,
Mm.
so things don't come for free, and as we said, right? I mean, we laugh and joke about it, but when it comes to real, there are real human beings working behind companies like EA, right? Who are
Mm-hmm.
being exploited. Real people working behind, crying every month. Think of the guys who are doing Fortnite expansions and
Oh.
add-ons, and yeah. So I mean, those are real lives that we're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a corrupt system, yeah, it is, but it's I mean, it's good that these kind of news and so on comes to light, but I think there needs to be a proper balance here where we as gamers and as consumers are also part of the problem, where our demand is, or maybe companies just think we want so much at the extent of killing people as to say, right?
Yeah. As in
Yeah,
grinding them to dust, right? Like,
yeah,
yeah. I
yeah,
guess like a game as a service is always gonna fall down this path of generate content or the game dies.
yeah. Just because you want to see Luke Skywalker come out and start his stuff on Fortnite, right?
Or yeah,
Or
yeah.
maybe this
Fortnite
time in a pair of
Battlefield.
boxers. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's I know there's a demand, but like, how much is too much, right?
Mm.
Hmm.
Mm.
So I guess this is a good time to bring up the fact that in the court documents it was revealed that Last of Us cost 220 million to create.
But you've played The Last of Us, right?
Oh no, I just watched the TV show. It was great.
But that's the thing, like, I mean, the TV show was awesome, and honestly, the game, I only played the first one, but it was really, it's awesome. I mean, uh, I mean, we go back to the point that it's not so much, it's not a hardware sales game anymore, right? It's content, right? And
Yeah.
it's
But I
not
mean,
just, yeah.
but the net result is to buy something that you can play it on, right?
Mm,
Like that's why like I never thought about I never once thought about how fair it was for the developer to put their stuff onto Game Pass. I never once. Not until this situation, and I started reading a little bit, a few Reddit posts and all that, that I realized that, oh shoot, okay, this is not the holy grail. Not every developer gets paid. The It does not get a share of the pie. So you put your stuff on there. My understanding was you put your stuff on there, and you take a little bit back, right? But it's
mm.
only if you get downloaded.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just felt like, oh damn.
I
I
mean, it's the same thing with Spotify as well, with artists. When you
yeah.
put music on Spotify, right? It's like 100, I think 1 million streams only you get revenue,
Mm.
My
Wow.
gosh.
right?
Wow.
That's a lot of streams before you get revenue. So I think Snoop Dogg came out and was that talking about this, right? He was like,
Mm,
give the music back to the artist. So in the same way now, when we look at developers, right, they are hardworking people
Oh
behind the
man.
scenes trying to create a beautiful game,
I
mhm.
love
and
this.
then right, big conglomerate just comes in and like, nope, mine now.
You know what? I love that. I love that idea cuz Snoop always talks about do you own your own masters?
Yes,
Mm.
And
exactly.
I'm like, that's I think we could start a movement today.
Literally,
Yeah, the
like
people who work on the
he,
game, the guys who created, the originator of this idea,
yep,
they should be in control of their own masters.
exactly. And then John, you
Mhm.
should know this as well, even with comics, right? With Marvel,
Oh yeah, well
Jim
we know that.
Lee,
Yeah, yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah.
And then even the most current one, the most famous one, Taylor Swift, she re-recorded and remastered her entire library.
Yeah, just
Wow.
so she could get the masters for it.
Yes.
Because if you don't own it, someone else does. Like Michael Jackson, he owned half the library of the Beatles.
Yeah,
Wow.
exactly.
Yeah,
Mm.
Mm.
and because John died.
Mhm.
George
Yeah.
died. Ringo
Yeah.
and Paul don't do any content, so nobody remasters it anymore. They don't own it.
Yep.
Can you imagine that? Yeah,
It's
Yeah.
and you know
crazy.
what? This is a microcosm. The music industry is a microcosm for this. It really is. You don't own your own
Exactly.
masters. You're a
No.
slave to the thing. The more
Mhm.
downloads your game gets, the less you don't see nothing of. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
Exactly.
dude, that is a great point. So okay, I guess it's a moot point to say that like monopolies in gaming kind of they don't exist. And I know they're trying to. I mean, there was a time in the world where the Nintendo 8-bit console was the be all and end all. It was 90% of every home. You know what I mean? Like the Sega Genesis, the Sega Master System was just a joke by
Mhm.
comparison. Better hardware, but just no titles. You know, not enough titles.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I guess that's not really. I mean, we could bring it up and talk about monopolies in gaming, but I just feel like, of course,
It's getting there.
the conglomerates would like to get there, right? And
Yep.
and I feel like the more the console starts to become a PC, the more
Parity, right?
the more parity there is, the
Mm.
more things will change in terms of
Mm.
does Sony then become a studio itself?
Mhm.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And does Microsoft then, do what it does, right? And turn Game Pass into a studio on its own, and they start hoarding everything, and and then they were three.
And
Yes.
then there were three.
Yeah. What
Yeah.
was
Because
it
look
in
what happened to Sega, right?
yeah. Or
Yeah.
what was it that remember Demolition Man?
Mm-hmm.
The fast food wars and Taco Bell is the one. So, if you want to go out and eat in Demolition Man's world, you can only go to Taco Bell.
You would like some fine dining? Head on to Taco Bell.
No, but that's a good point, right? I mean, I think it's steeped in theory, but it's also true, right? Where when it comes to looking out for the consumer, I think that's why most economies and most ecosystems try not to encourage monopolies.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, when you have competition, is where ingenuity and innovation comes about, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, we can look in recent times as well. I mean, the Switch has done so well, especially
Yeah.
since COVID and so on. But it goes back even before the Switch, right? The Wii U was a bomb. It flopped, but the Wii, the GameCube, the Nintendo 64, the Game Boy, everything, right? That's why I feel that Nintendo, they're very, even though they're dinosaurs in terms of
Oh,
their
yeah.
eShop, they are horrible. You know?
They're shrewd as hell as well.
Yeah, I think all of us are experienced with that, right? They're
Oh, I
just
hate the
terrible at
eShop.
that.
And the
Like, why can't they
games are
just build a
not
platform
cheap.
that works on their stupid hardware?
Yeah. No, but the thing is like, and we all know that in terms of hardware power, it's nowhere close
No,
to
but
maybe even the
But fun
PS4.
fact, Nintendo hasn't made a loss on a console except the Wii U, but they never make a loss on the hardware.
Yeah, but
That's why it's so underpowered.
correct. But it's also, but it goes back to what Armand was saying earlier, right? It's
Mhm.
because content is king,
Yes.
right? So the fascinating part about what Nintendo does really well is that they know their IPs, but they also know what experience they want to bring. So if you listen to like Miyamoto, right, where he talks about the simple idea of like Zelda was just to he wanted to bring people back to how they were exploring in their gardens. It was as simple as that. And when it came to like Mario,
Yeah.
it's just
That's
pure
cool.
exploration.
Yeah.
So it's they understand that to to a ground level, to like a very human level, where
Mhm.
I think a lot. That's why they're not worried about all this. They're not worried about what Sony and what Microsoft is worried about
Yeah, they
because
just do what they do, right?
yeah, they just do what they do because their wall garden is so strong in terms of their
Yeah.
content, right? And in terms of their hardware innovation. Like honestly, when the Wii came out, right? Then you had PlayStation shitting their pants, you had Xbox shitting their pants. What did
Yeah.
they release? They
Yeah.
released the PS Move. The Xbox, I forgot what
And the Connect.
it bombed. Guys,
Yeah.
both of it bombed.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
now we bring back to the present, right? The Switch has done so well. What has this done? You look at the Steam Deck, you look at the ROG Ally, right? It looks the same.
Yeah.
That, but I think because of IP laws, they can't do the transposition to the TV.
Oh, what do you mean for
The dock. the
Steam Deck.
dock and pulling the control system.
Well, I mean, you can if you want to. You can't pull the joypads out, but you can connect it to a TV and just Bluetooth a controller if you want to, or even just USB it. But I mean, I think I like how you went with the ROG Ally and Steam Deck. I think they were definitely trying to jump into the waters, but I think very specifically, not to steal Nintendo's thunder, right? I think they realized that a lot of people had a lot of games on their Steam libraries not getting played, and then they were like, well, if you could take it on the road with you. That's why the Steam hardware survey is such a big deal. Every time you sign in or you say yes to the Steam hardware survey, those guys over there, they're taking all their Dota 2 international money and they're just counting. They're just like, if I spend 1% of my riches this year, I could definitely change the game. And I think that's what they did. I think it was a very shrewd move by them, by the way. I think that, like, now, if PlayStation comes up with another PS Vita or something like that, oh, dude, the uphill climb is going to be ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, there's rumors of that as well, right? With Sony wanting to come back to the handheld war, right?
Yeah,
After being bashed with their Vita and their...
I just don't think it's worth doing it, though. You know what I mean?
not.
Like,
I don't think so either, honestly.
Yeah. Okay. So, Josh, you brought it up, and we did talk about it. Armand and I talked about it, about the evils of acquiring a company or a studio only to just nickel and dime them and kneecap them. You know, take them to the border of Scotland and get them kneecapped by some dude. You know what I mean? Like, look at BioWare. They're a shell of what they used to be.
Yeah,
We
man.
talked about when we were doing the notes for this, right? Did Bethesda really do very much after the Microsoft acquisition? Like, it's Elden Ring or whatever, right? Still, okay, fine. Elder Scrolls or Elden Ring or whatever might still be a good seller, but I don't know. Fallout 76, nobody likes it, I think. I mean, it's still an ongoing, like, MMORPG kind of thing, but I don't know. Like, it matters that when your stuff gets acquired, we talked about it getting watered down. And that's the fear, right?
I think, John, if I may, right, watered down is one, but if you've seen Mass Effect 3 had a really terrible ending, but it was a superb game. It was really good up to like the last 5 minutes. But when Andromeda came out after that, my God, it wasn't even watered down. It was just
Broken.
poor quality. It was just broken. So I think even Fallout 76 and oh God, it was. Are we going to talk about Cyberpunk?
I haven't played it.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, I think this is what cheeses off every consumer and every gamer, and it's when there's an acquisition. If there is, I think if the content that comes up on valued, treasured IPs, right, that people love, especially if you look at Mass Effect, right, 1, 2, 3, where they were one of the few that really talked about how you experience in Mass Effect 2, your decisions matter in Mass Effect 3. They were the original guys, right, where your experience in the second one determines 3 and so on, right, and then when Andromeda comes out, it becomes like, what is this trash? It doesn't work. And why is this person's mouth like this? And why is the game crashing? So I think this is the fear where acquisitions has more often than not shown us that you acquire on the promise of a bigger, better experience for gamers, right? But ultimately, what gets birthed is something of it was way worse than what you actually originally, when you didn't have an acquirer. So I think that's where the fear comes out from, I guess. I don't know. What do you think, Armand?
Right. So yeah, I totally agree with, acquiring and then putting out mediocre stuff. But the other evil and darkness that I see coming out from all this mergers and acquisition is I'm just buying so that you can't have it, right? So it's like that jock that knows I like that girl, but girl, I don't like her, but I'm gonna date her just so you can date her, right?
Mm.
Mm.
So we've also seen this in movies. I don't know if you remember the 1992 Fantastic Four movie that got made but no one saw, just so they could retain the rights to the
Yeah, I
movie,
heard about that.
right? And then if you're seeing right now what they're doing, even with Sony and the Spider-Man,
Mm.
they're churning out stuff after stuff, Morbius, Crave, not because they want to make those movies,
No, they're
but they
trying.
want to retain the IP, right? Because
Mhm.
again, if you don't make a movie after certain years, the IP goes back to, in this
Marvel,
case,
Disney.
Disney, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So having mediocre games is one thing, but they probably go, it's okay, it's on our platform, just churn out wherever, let people buy. I don't care. The other dude's not gonna get it anyway. So if you really want to play, you play on us, but either that, suck it. I don't care. So that's the other side that I'm fearful of,
Yeah, actually, that's true.
right? Which
Yeah.
is why then you see people slowly collapsing smaller studios because I go, nope, I don't want you to be making any other cool games. So I buy you so you don't make cool games.
I feel like it goes back to that music analogy. You gotta own your masters, man. I think you do. I
Hmm.
think if any studio CEO or exec or storyteller sees this, own your fucking masters, man. Like,
Own your
Oh, your
masters.
fucking masters.
Own it. Just
yeah,
own
like
it.
find a way, put your stamp on it. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, we've seen Yuzu Koshiro. I mean, like, oh, not Yuzu Koshiro, but like Miyamoto. We've got the guy from Sega. They got all these like great grand, even Kojima, right? These guys, these brilliant thinkers, these storytellers, and all that kind of stuff. They just go from studio to studio now, creating masterpieces, but they're just not. They don't own their masters,
Mhm.
and they are not masters of the game, no matter how great the game is. It's kind of
Yep.
sad, actually. Now that I think about it, I mean, like,
I mean, if you look at Hideo Kojima, he doesn't own
oh, Jack Diddley Squat.
yeah,
Yeah.
Metal Gear Solid's not his.
No, no, yeah,
And
yeah.
do you know what they did with Metal Gear Solid, right? They
It's
made Metal
trash
Gear
now.
Solid
Oh,
survive.
yeah.
What
It's
is that?
trash. Yeah.
Guys, what's that? Is there some zombie thing? What is that going to do with Metal Gear?
Oh
See,
man.
exactly.
Absolutely
But
nothing.
again, it goes back to like he doesn't own the masters, he doesn't own the
Yeah.
rights to it. Konami owns it, so Konami goes, you don't want to work with us? Bye. We'll keep all your stuff.
This is the perfect segue. I love this. You know why? Because the last topic, obviously, is, the optics of these hearings, right? The dirty laundry that gets dredged up. You know what I mean? Because everything's out in public space now, right?
Mm, mm.
If I didn't think Sony was an evil corporation before, I do now. And I tell you, I already know Microsoft's an evil corporation, right?
Hmm.
But to me, they came out so angelic. I was just like, yeah, come on, Microsoft, let's do this. I will upgrade and I'll abuse myself with how trash Windows 11 is because you might win this case. But the thing is for me the optics is just it's so bad.
Mm.
Like I couldn't imagine like when Nintendo said, "Hey, no, you cannot do esports for Mario Kart. No, you cannot do esports for Super Smash.
Hmm.
Mm.
All right, we'll sue you. We'll take your content down. We'll DMCA you and all that." And I'm like, that is sick. Like Nintendo's like, if you guys are making money and I'm not taking a piece of it, you're not gonna do it. And I'm like, that's fucked up. That sucks. That super
Yeah.
sucks. And
Everybody's evil, but
yeah,
nobody is clean.
but that's why I hate like I really disliked like what Nintendo did.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like to me, Nintendo was one of the best companies when I was a kid. I didn't know any better.
Mm.
And then you hear all these things about these anti fan practices that they're doing and all that. And I'm like, oh man, you guys suck. You know what I mean? Like I feel bad
Mhm.
that you guys don't get to do that. People don't get to enjoy your game the way they want to enjoy it.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
people don't get to see the content you want to see. Capcom doesn't, however, stop anybody from doing a Street Fighter 3 tournament.
Hmm.
It's an
Or a
old game.
tutorial video. Or yeah.
Yeah, it's an old game. So what? Every time you play something from my library, you're giving me shine, right? Why doesn't Nintendo think that way? So, I think the last sort of question, just to kind of tie us up a little bit, is I just want to get your thoughts. I'll finish last on whether you think this hurts anybody involved, because the Federal Trade Commission of America is this, is a kumpulan of people who just decide that what's fair and what's not fair and all that kind of stuff. But really, the puppet master is obviously Sony in this case. So we know all the histories, but the floor is yours, you guys. Like, tell me, let us know what you think the repercussions are of this entire debacle, because it's going to happen again. CMA is what, third quarter this year?
Mm-hmm.
Armand, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure.
I think I mean it's basically, when it comes to gaming, there are two religions that I have. It's Sony and Nintendo, right?
I love that. I love that.
But it is fair to say, just a thought here where, when it comes to this, I think ultimately I do understand from the consumer's point of view where it should be parity, we should get access across all platforms, but there is also the, nothing is made for free, right? So, I think in terms of, at the end of the day, what is right or wrong, I think there's no simple answer to this. And it really is, right? I think it's more of, I just go back to what the simple thing that the judge said, right? Why don't you make your own game? Which it's so simple, but it holds so much truth, right? Because if a first-person shooter is the one that you're worried about, and you're worried about losing that base, right? In which, correct me if I'm wrong, John and Armand, from the court document reports, up to 60% of PlayStation owners don't even play Call of Duty, right?
No, well, they had some preposterous number.
Yeah.
They said they had
Yeah.
500 million installs or something like that, and I was like, 500 million installs, and then the judge was like, yeah, but how many of that 500 million still play the game after the first month?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sony was like, I'll get to that in a minute on my side, but continue, Josh.
Okay, but I think just final couple thoughts here where I think exclusivity is not wrong, or it shouldn't be something that we should say shouldn't be the case, because at the end of the day, right? It is a contents game, and you will buy a hardware or a piece of software that you really like. If you can't get it today, you'll just have to work for it, and it comes at a price. If you want it bad enough, you will be able to do it. But you go get it. So, but also it's on the onus is on game companies itself, right? Where if you're gonna lose out on Call of Duty, do what Nintendo does. Just come out with Splatoon. Splatoon. Just it's a first person shooter, but it's different. So use that ingenuity, use that innovation, right? I know Nintendo is not they're not angels in any case anyway, because they're quite hard, and they will take down anything that they cannot monetize, right? Because that's the truth, right? Yeah. So, but I think in it's a good example where they probably looked at, okay, if I want to go after the base of the Americans who are basically majority all into first-person shooters, how do I do this? They came up with Splatoon. It's smart, it's different, and as an IP, I think Splatoon is doing well. No?
Yeah, it's a fun game.
Yeah, it is a fun game.
All right.
So, as much as we want to be in the know what's happening there, like, bottom line, how does it affect, as your question is, how does it affect us, right? So I feel like the line to Alien versus Predator kind of sums it up. Whoever wins, we lose.
Oh, wait, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because we now have to think, oh, okay, with this exclusivity, I no longer am looking at games that I go, oh, that game's awesome. I'll go buy that game. Oh, it's there, right? Now I have to go, shit, the game's not here. I have to go there now. So it's no longer a choice of whether I want to play the game. It's the game's not here. So I have to go where it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So back then it was very much about, oh, the game is so good, the game is so good. Oh, GTA, but it's only on PlayStation. Great. But then eventually it opens up in other platforms, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I see this as we don't really win because when we talk about progress, just now you said monopoly kind of competition begets progress, right?
Mm.
So in this context, what progress are we making? There's no progress because again, games, as you said, games are going to be crappy because they're just going to make mediocre games because it's all about money grabbing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what I'd like to see, this is my wishful thinking, is that with all these mergers, acquisitions, purchases of good talent, they push and make better games with all this. And not just it's not just about the money. It's not just about how much money it can make. Because the whole argument here is Call of Duty. It's a fucking stupid game that is the same
It's been
since
the
I
same
don't
game.
know when it came out, right?
Yep.
It's the same game over and over again. But
Same
again,
game for 15 years, you know,
More than that,
exactly.
right?
Yeah, but
or
Yeah.
more than
people just love playing for some odd reason because America, right? Yeah, whatever, right? Guns, explosions. So they're not doing it because they're trying to improve anything in the gaming world. It's just more money for us. Okay, I'll buy you.
Yeah, yeah, man, like it's I think you kind of hit it on the nail there. Like we kind of everybody loses when these guys win, right? And let's not forget who's winning here.
Mm.
It's Microsoft.
Yeah,
It's Microsoft, for God's sakes. They're the ones
yeah,
who are winning. When was this ever a good idea? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that they're super duper. I mean, everybody's got their own thing. I often view Nintendo as the Apple of the gaming world,
oh yes,
right? Do so
they're
much with
just
so
doing their own
little.
thing.
Yeah, it's like, oh, we changed one thing. Oh my god, the eShop is so good.
Yeah, can
Sorry.
we have a Switch Pro? No, no, no. You have an OLED. That's
Oh
what you're
yeah.
gonna get.
that's what you get.
Okay, I'll tell you what. I did get suckered into that. I did trade in my Gen 1 for OLED, and I was like, oh my god, look, honey, it's an OLED. The screen's bigger. It's sad. But yeah, I mean, I look at the situation and I think that I can't help but feel like if you weren't trying to put your feet wrong, Sony just made a hash of that. And to be fair,
Mm,
I personally think, and I shared this with Josh the other day, I feel like they're using the FTC against Microsoft as a test bed for what they're going to say in the CMA.
mm,
They're going to present a totally different case because net, the judge was the one who came off as the real hero here. She comes in and says, that's anti-consumer.
uh,
You could just make a new game. Why do you have to buy this? All this for this game? You know what I mean? Like, she came off being this, like, the voice of reason the entire time. And I was
yeah,
like,
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I can't argue with that. And, like, the thing is the logic of it all. I think, you know how Americans are sometimes, and even the Europeans are like this a little bit. They look at a situation like this, it's so overly publicized, and they start choosing sides.
Mm.
And they start going, well, you know what? Do I really want to I want to vote with my dollar? I'm going to go and put it with a company who is purposely trying to force me to pay more money versus I go with a company that's trying to save me some money, but is equally as evil as the other one.
Mhm.
You're right in every sense of the word. In every sense, we are in a catch-22. Damned if you do, and damned if you don't.
Yeah, yeah.
And let's the other thing is also let's also not forget who's being acquired here.
Mhm.
It's Activision Blizzard.
Yeah.
The guys who, because there wasn't enough pre-sales on Warcraft 3 Reforged, they just released a piece of shit. They did. I mean,
But it's
nobody
because
likes.
because of Activision, no? I mean, Blizzard was fine.
Blizzard was the reason behind it, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's kind of like three evil corporations are kind of going, well, if you give me Skeletor and Hordak, I'll trade you Monstar. Or something, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's silly, and I think that anybody who's out there trying to fight the good fight, who believes in the little man and all that kind of stuff, I think those guys get turned off real quick. They may not buy another console in the next generation. They may really vote with their dollar.
Yep.
I think some people do stick to their guns because on principle, right? Does that make a PC a better choice? No, it's expensive. It's expensive. You constantly have to upgrade this piece of shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so I just feel like, yeah, you know, I think optically it doesn't look good for everybody. I think they could have found better ways of doing this. Sony could have just sort of tried to outthink everything Microsoft came up with, and they just didn't.
Yep.
They just took the other way, and that's the sad part, right? Like, because to become relevant again, and even though they're still the third place, Microsoft is, they had to create Game Pass. Without it, I don't think they would be here anymore. If they didn't do Game Pass, I think sales of Xbox would be even lower than what it is now. And we're looking at, like, I think the split is something like 25-30% Xbox, like 40% like PlayStation, and then the remaining of that is Switch. But they don't really, I don't know what the metric is, but they don't count it as the same. But I think if you looked at the pie, like in some sales figures, Switch is already 40%. The rest have to take up the small pieces, right? So I think, yeah, I just think it's bad for everybody. I think optically it's bad. That's why I wanted to talk about it, because of course it makes for easy fodder. And I do think we should stick by. I think if you have to remember one thing from this podcast, is to buy and own your own fucking masters.
Be your own master.
Yeah, be your own master.
your
Game
master,
developers. Yeah, if you know how to tell a story, put your name on that shit. Don't let someone take that shit from you, another publisher or whatever. Make sure you get paid. Make sure your people get paid.
Yes, sir.
Unless you're an agency, then.
Oh no! If you're an agency, give us your money.
Then we have to help.
Okay, and we're out.